Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, dependent, of course, on when and where you are joining us from. This is A Day in the Life Of, a podcast brought to you by the SDR leaders of EMEA. Now, in this podcast, we're going to be speaking to various SDR leaders across EMEA about their role, how they get the best out of their teams, tech stacks, and any other trends that they're seeing to influence the landscape. Now, today we are joined by Sara Storm, co-founder and chief revenue officer at Break the Box and Skills. Sara, thank you very much for joining me. Did you want to take a minute to introduce yourself and share a little bit more with the audience?
Yes, let's do it. Hi, everyone listening and watching. My name is Sara. I have been in the revenue game my entire career, so 22 years now. I'm old. I'm getting gray. It doesn't show as much, but I know when you meet me, you will see. And I have been doing revenue within SaaS since 2012. So I had my first SaaS gig 2012, which is ages ago now. It's just like a different lifetime. And I have also been to a lot of journeys with SaaS companies, going from like 2 to 4th employee in, growing up to 60, 70 people, and then exiting when a big company either swallowed us up or they got a new investment and a new board. Ergo, we will sort of pivot or stay in the direction we're in. And then I sort of got bored and I left. And I have also had a stint at an agency for about 2.5 years. I was the 7th person in. I was head of revenue. I built a sales team. We grew to 45, and then we got bought by a bigger agency, which is Avidly now, which is actually one of the biggest agencies in Europe on HubSpot. And the journey that sort of made me go in between sales and marketing was being at that agency. I did a lot of sales tech delivery when it comes to rolling out CRM, rolling out sales tech. And I very much love sales tech. Technology for sales is so much fun. I've been at Vino, which is a prospecting tool. I have done Time As Can, which is a video tool very similar to Vidyard. I have been working on prospecting tools before that too, and again, HubSpot CRM. So I have been very immersed into the sales technology of making salespeople do what they do best, which is sitting with customers, talking to them like human beings, right? So that's sort of short summary of my background. I have 2 kids, 6 and a 9-year-old and a 16-year-old. I'm very neurodivergent, so I am bipolar and I have BPD. I talk about this a lot because a lot of salespeople that I have met in my career have a neurospicy brain of some sort, especially the best ones. So I have a lot of different topics that I talk about on LinkedIn and everywhere else where I can, but sales has always been a big nerdy interest of mine. I also have an SDR guide on Amazon that you can buy if you want. And SDR work has sort of, even when I was VP sales, I have always done SDR work. I have always taught and trained SDR teams because I think it's one of the funnest part of the process, which most people don't agree with.
Yeah, it's an interesting take. I think prospecting is a muscle that is often forgotten by salespeople when they make that jump to closing.
Yes, 100%.
And, it does fade away. So I'm very much of the opinion that you should never stop prospecting. So I love that you're in the same boat.
Yes, 100%.
Brilliant. A very interesting journey so far. I'd love to know a little bit more about your transition from an individual contributor moving into leadership. You able to share a bit more insight on that sort of stage?
Yes, 100%. And I do believe that I've met so many salespeople in my life, and a lot of the people that are individual contributors who become good leaders, they never stop thinking of themselves as an individual contributor. Again, I am now CRO. I have been VP sales, and I have never sort of stopped looking at myself as an individual contributor, because that mindset is very important. So I tried to keep that when I moved into leadership positions, because if you are going to coach and actively be hands-on with your team, even if it's SDRs, if it's account executives, you need to do what they're doing. You need to at least have a few processes going for yourself to fully understand what they're meeting out there when they're going out to do their outreach or driving process. And I never really let go of that because I believe it's such a good place to get insight. The market is moving very, very quickly. And we have a tendency of not understanding. So we go to leadership, and 2 years later, we don't remember what it was to be in the bullpen. Like, we completely forgot about it. We just pushed it to the back of our minds and be like, I never have to do that again. I'm so good. I'm so good. I don't have to do it. And at the same time, you're going to try to coach junior and a bit senior people into doing a role that is nothing like it was for 2 years ago. It's nothing like it was 2 years ago. And I think you really need to be connected to your team in that way. And it's also about leading by showing them. And I know a lot of sales leaders will be like, but wait, the leadership role is about leading. Yeah, but how can you lead when you're not ready to go out and dig some dirt with your own hands?
Yeah. So 2 things came to mind as you were speaking there. First, the only constant is change in sales, especially. And then that second piece was really leading by example, and how can you expect the team to have full, unwavering confidence and belief unless they see you in the trenches with them to an extent, right?
Yes, I agree. And we have 3 SDRs now in Break the Box because we're a niche consultancy house, so we sell only to SaaS companies. So pre-seed, startup, scale up, which is my domain. I've been in SaaS for such a long time. And what they basically, their only job is to book meetings, right? Qualified ICP freak meetings. That's their only job. That's what they're going to do. And the way that I onboarded them was to sit down next to them and do the same work for like 3 weeks. Because how were we supposed to figure out what works? Because before I did our own prospecting, before we hired the team, and so did the other consultants we have, they sort of made their own pipeline happen on their own. And when we brought the SDRs in, we brought 5 in at the same time. So we had a group, and then I sat next to them after onboarding. We had like a week and a half of onboarding of what we do. They are very junior, like we're talking 20, 21-year-old, like very, very junior salespeople who knew nothing about SaaS when they came in. They had no idea what the concept was even. They came straight out of college or university. And when we sat down and we started doing cold calling, it took one of my best team members, it took him 2 weeks, and now he's stable at booking 3 to 5 meetings a week. And he was completely unaware of the industry. And the reason why was because they sat and listened to me over and over and over again while I was doing content strategy, while I was working on LinkedIn, while I was calling, while I was emailing, while I was building sequence. So we built it together. We built it based on my experience, obviously, but we built it together. They found their tonality in the sequences they are using because your own tonality is so important. The person who calls needs to sound like the person who emailed. It's a very important part. We are all human. We want to connect on a human level. But they ramped up so fast. And when I have built SDR teams before and sales teams before, one of my main goals is to hire fast, trust curiosity in the salesperson. If they are curious, they will figure everything out with me, and then try to ramp them up as soon as possible. Both to be able to see what is the challenges that they have individually, and also to see if they have the capacity to live in a speedy world. Because this is where we live in, right? And many SaaS companies who have SDR teams, they are focusing on the wrong things. The incentive model is incorrectly set up for it to be a good environment for a person to flourish and to ramp up quickly. Because the point is to fall down a lot. Like it felt like a therapy session, the first of the sessions we had when they were sort of struggling. Like, but you're supposed to struggle. You're supposed to fall over and over again. That's the learning process now. The learning curve will be that you will call and make mistakes in a bunch of calls, and then that will teach you things. This is the learning curve. So getting them to be up and running quickly also gives them confidence that they can. And it was a very different experience from when I come into companies that I've done before as a VP or a hire or a head of, and there's an existing team, and the ramp-up time they're expecting is like 4 months. Like, no, it can't be that way. We can't work like that because it drains the person who has been hired too. They feel horrible during that process when things take time that way. So we need to sort of give them the tools, throw them out, and swim next to them while they're trying to figure this out.
Yeah, it's funny you use that swimming analogy. As you were speaking, that is exactly what I was sort of picturing. Those initial stages, you're very much holding the armband, so to speak, helping them swim, and then you're slowly walking further away ensuring them that you're still there just in case.
Yeah.
It's that point on, focus on the acquisition of the knowledge first, give them the information through that shadowing, and then let them apply it.
Yeah,
Let them
100%.
learn, turn that into skills, fail a few times, but it's necessary. So
Yeah.
really great analogy, great summary there. Are there any pieces of advice that really stuck with you as you were moving into that leadership role?
Yeah. Yes, I have a few things. So first of all, communication, how you communicate matters. I was talking about neurospicy brains before. So since I'm also slightly autistic, not on paper, but I am. So I am a person who will take you word by word on what you say. I don't understand subtext. It might sound weird for a salesperson to not understand subtext. I've worked on it a lot, but I really do not. And since I have a weird communication style myself, I also recognize that other people who come into SDR teams and who come into sales roles have their own way of communicating with their manager, because a lot of this has to do with setting expectations. So how do you communicate? So one of the first things that I do when I hire new people is that I explain to them how I function, how I communicate, what I want from them for them to make themselves understood to me. And then I ask similar questions back. How do you want me to deliver information? Because some people really need data points, right? Some people need really detailed instructions. Some people need to be creative. They want to do their own thing, and then you need to hone that energy in. It's very different from person to person. And right now, the scene we're in is trying to transform everyone to the same robot. That's what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to shape everyone in the same box. We're trying to communicate without putting the effort into communicating individually with our people, because we are overloaded, because the current situation, the current financial landscape in the world right now is rough, and our leaders are sweating. They're sweating right now. And then they put pressure downwards, which is not a great way of doing it. So communication is key. That's one of the things that I learned very early on. I actually had an autistic manager when I was very junior, and I was like, what is happening here? I didn't understand at all how he communicated. And then we had a conversation about it. And once I understood how to communicate to him, my communication with him was just effortless, while everyone else in his team was struggling a lot. And that impacted their results. Yeah. So we are people. We need to understand each other's communication styles. Soft skills is super undervalued in the sales leaders. I don't know why, because it's one of the most powerful things if you put them in action correctly for your team to accelerate their results, which is what we're aiming for, right? What other lessons? It's a numbers game, people keep saying. And I will say that again, it is a numbers game. The numbers now have to actually be connected to quality though. So we have a challenge here with quality versus quantity. And I also have something that because I trained a lot of salespeople, I've done a lot of social selling training, I've done a lot of social enablement training, I've done a lot of sales training. And the problem with us trying to put everyone in this box now is that we are communicating in sales right now in a way that no human wants to interact. I will give you an example. So if you have a person, a friend of yours calling you, like, do you want to grab a beer? And that person says, yes, can you give me reviews on how it is to do beers with you? Like, this is not how we communicate. And somehow, if you look at LinkedIn and you look at outreach, this is how we're trying to communicate now. Like, the reviews of me being in a meeting is great. Look at the 5 stars I have. Like, this is not how we talk. I have been a relationship builder when I was an ICP or an individual contributor. Ongoingly, I have always been a relationship builder because I speak to people like they are people. And my outreach has always sort of mimicked that, because I don't like being spoken to like I am just a role or a bag of money. And this is the same for all customers. And as a leader who gets approached a lot by SDRs, what I always do, because I get a lot of outreach. So as soon as you get certain titles, you get a lot of outreach. So every time I get an outreach that isn't on par, I will just text back, great, look, let's talk. Let's talk about what you're doing now. I know it's not your fault. I know it's your leader. Like, I know, but hear me out. And then I send them resources and free courses and stuff for them to sort of move to a place where they take responsibility for their own development. because we have to realize that the parents we have, which is the leaders right now, they're not doing great. Like, they're financially pressured, they're stressing out, and they're not doing great when it comes to leading us as groups. So that's a few of the lessons. And the third lesson would be that customers are human. I can give you an example. So I had a deal. This is a bunch of years ago. I had a deal that I've been working on for a couple of months. It was a big software company, so I really wanted to nail the deal. Good ACV, like we were on target. We did project conversations now, like how to implement, which is always a good place to be in. We were agreed, me and the decision maker, that we want to go. But there were details to sort of figure out. And then this person suddenly ghosts me out of nowhere. And as a salesperson, you have a bunch of different choices. And it's the same as an SDR when you're trying to book a meeting with someone. You have multiple different choices of what could have happened. And for me, I'm Neurospicy, so I'm a bit weird. But I couldn't let it go. I was like, this is weird. We had these interactions. They were on board. Like, I had accelerated consent. Like, we were together here in this. We were doing something. And then I texted her, I called her, I did all the things to sort of try to get a hold of her. And then because I couldn't let it go, I actually connected with one of her team members on LinkedIn. And I was like, I don't mean to bother you, but I'm actually worried. Is she okay? Yeah. And then it turned out that one of her kids had an accident and he was in the hospital. And he had been committed for several weeks because of a severe injury that he had. I don't know if it was a car crash, something like that, something very aggressive. And she was obviously off with a very good reason. And what I did was that I sent flowers to her, to her office for her, and just, I hope your son gets well. Yeah. And after, when she came back, like a month later, we actually closed the deal. But I could have been like most salespeople will go here, or SDRs, like, yeah, but they're just like, I can't swear on the pod, I won't. But she's just an asshole. So that's why I got ghosted. But we need to understand that things are going on in people's lives. I hear and see a lot of sales reps and SDRs being frustrated about how badly they are approached or how badly they are responded to. Like, there are reasons for this. Yeah. So what you need to do is just go next. Because you can't keep seeing this as something that is happening to you, because it's not. Yeah. These are people we're trying to reach. They have their own shit. And you're probably not on the top of the priority list.
Yeah, it's all about earning the right. And you mentioned when people get a certain job title, decision maker, they become that persona, and we almost do forget they're a human as well. So there are going to be things going on in their life. And that example was just painted the picture so well.
Yeah.
And then on the communication style, it's, I think it was last night I saw this video that was, this individual creates a document talking about how they work, how they communicate.
Yeah.
Whenever they start working with a new client or in a new role, it's literally here, this will be helpful. And I'm like, I need to do one of those.
No, but I actually think it's super important. I do the same with customers. Because again, if you are a person like me, since I don't read subtext, I will ask the stupidest questions. Like, I will ask the stupidest questions. Everyone else in the room understands exactly what they mean. And I'm like, but why would you say that? Because I don't understand sarcasm that good either. We have a term in my house called sarcasm, and it is when I don't understand. Because they're flying comments between my oldest daughter and my husband, and also my co-founder of Break2Box. Comments are flying, and I'm just looking like, I don't understand at all. And that's a sarcasm, because it just...
That's brilliant. Now, my next question was around any common mistakes that you'd advise new leaders should avoid at all costs, which kind of goes against what we were talking about around the importance of making the mistakes to learn. But are there any pitfalls that new leaders should try to avoid?
Okay, yes, there are. And it also depends if you take over a team or if you recruit your own, right? Because if you take over a team, you get what you get. And then you need to work with what you get. And I think as a leader, there are a few things that I have seen very few leaders do. So first, we talked about communication style. You need to talk to your people about how you want to be communicated to and how they want to be communicated to. Like, how does this dynamic work? And you need to build that dynamic per you and team member, right? And that's something a lot of leaders don't do. Having that actual conversation, like with words, not subtext, but actually with words. So have a communication style conversation with each team member. Number 2, you will want to micromanage. You will want to. I guarantee you. Don't. Just don't. Have your check-ins, leave them alone, and go on CRM data. That's all you should do. Like, just don't micromanage. One of the things that we did a lot, that I have done a lot in the teams I've had before, and we're doing it now too, when we go through a deal clinic or deal pipeline rundowns, what I want them to do is to expect to be able to communicate exactly what's going on in their pipe, as an example. And if they don't, it's not going to help that I try to micromanage them to do. We need to always explain why we're asking someone to do something, and we need to make expectations super clear. A lot of the challenges that I see for leadership when you are junior is that you don't have the confidence yet to be clear in expectations, because you believe that it's you being too harsh. Women hear this a lot, by the way. So female leaders have a challenge with this because they feel like they're all only being told that they should not be so harsh. A male leader can say the same thing and not be called harsh. He will call the good leader or whatever. But that's a challenge, right? So we need to be able to communicate our expectations clearly. And one of the challenges that you have as a junior leader when you don't have the confidence is that when you don't have the confidence to do that, people will not meet expectations because they will not understand what you're actually expecting from them. So communication style, expectation, communication. How do you communicate expectations, and how do you ensure that everyone in the team hears you, understands you, and will do what you ask them to do? And then a third mistake, and this is sad that I have to take this up, but many leaders who are junior, they don't get a mentorship with someone outside of the company. Because one of the things that I have done throughout my career, the last 14 years, I've had mentorships. I have 2 years with each person. I pick mentorship outside of my company so I can be open about what's going on. I can't have a mentor inside because politics, it doesn't work. So a mentor who's outside, who is often one level above me. So if I'm VP, I want to have a mentor who's a CRO. If I'm head of, I want to have a VP sales as my mentor, if that's your route to career, right? And with that mentor, these things are the things you need to talk to them about. So have a structure where you meet online once a month, discuss communication strategy and expectation strategy, because all of these things builds into success or fail. These are the things that are the core essence. We can talk about sales technology all we want, but at the end of the day, you are now trying to run a team of people who are not probably even in your office. They are somewhere across the globe. You are meeting them online, and you have a leadership team who's pressing you hard right now. It's a struggling time to be a junior leader right now in sales, because you have a lot of new things that are happening since the last couple of years that wasn't happening a while back. But get a mentorship. And if you feel like you don't know who to turn to, find 10 people who are cool on LinkedIn, ask them. 1 or 2 or 3 will say yes. And just book a session to get to know each other. If you like them, move ahead. If you don't like them, fuck them and go on to the next one. But just take that opportunity and do it today.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, have you got any tips on finding that mentor, but you were one step ahead. It's great what you mentioned about the clarity in communication, the clarity in setting expectations, because that then empowers that ownership and accountability in the rep, right?
Yes.
So I love that. And just on the professional development coaching piece, have you got any sort of go-to resources that you found really useful?
Yes. So I am a nerd for statistics. So I like reading and I like listening to pods and I like sales literature and sales pods, right? So a lot of the coaching I have received in my life, I haven't had great leaders. I've had a few, but most of them haven't been very great when it comes to being available or being coaching towards me. I have always also carried most of the quota of my team on my own. So they have been like, yeah, let's just leave her alone. So I've done a lot of the coaching for myself, and I think this is something to send to both leaders and people who are working in sales. You need to be accountable for your own development. So as a leader, you need to make sure you infuse accountability for this in your sales team. Yes, they can come to you and ask for courses or support or resources. But at the end of the day, the people who listen to pods on their way home from work, related to the topic that they're working on, these are the people who will succeed. The people who do Candy Crush, not very likely if you compare. Because this is something that needs to come from within yourself or to be trained as a skill. But as a leader, you need to create an environment where they are encouraged and checked on that they're doing their own research to grow themselves, besides the things that you're doing for the team as a team group thing, right? So when it comes to coaching, what I have done is I have educated myself. I have read thousands of sales books. I have listened to so many podcasts that I can't count it. And every time I listen to a podcast, I learn something new. Like I listened to an amazing Gartner pod a few days ago, and I wrote about it on LinkedIn because it was so good. Because it stated facts about how you need to be as a person, what characteristics you need to be a really good salesperson. And it reiterated what I have been talking about, because it talked about agility in mindset, to be curious of mind, to be flexible in your thinking, to be quick on your feet, to be adaptable to whatever's going on around you. And the curiosity has to do with understanding what's going on around you. And the question always comes back to, how do you find people who are like that naturally? How do you find people who have that in them? Because Jordan, I know you've met them. The people you see them and you're like, oh my God, this person is so curious to everything that they will learn whatever we need to teach them. It doesn't matter what it is, like they will figure it out. And then we have a bunch of people who won't do that because they don't have it naturally. And one of the things that Gartner has also confirmed lately is that neurodivergency is something that increases the likelihood of you being like that, which is super interesting to me because it has to do with creativity and agility of mind. So coaching, when it comes to coaching or literature of things to sort of get you started, dude, Google. Like there's so much things. So I never have like, this book contains the key or this resource is so good. I have participation for my SDRs. I have a list of things I want them to start doing. There are Slack channels that only talks about sales. There are LinkedIn influencer people who I ask them to follow. There are pods that I ask them to start getting on. And there are books that I tell them to read. There are resources that I tell them to consume. But what I want to train is not what's in the resource. It is to do the thing.
Yeah.
To do the thing. To get into habit of doing some sort of research point every day of your work week about a topic that either engages you in your sales role or your customer ICP, what they are interested in. You need to do research. So one of the things that I also have, and this is a tip for sales leaders as well, because this will help you a lot. I have quarterly sessions with myself as a person, right? About my life and about work and how I feel in life and work. So I basically close myself off for 24 hours. I have my notebook, I have pen, I have no distractions. I put my phone away, no computer, nothing. And then I start writing about how the last quarter has been for me as a person, work-related, family-related, money-related, health-related, all of these things. And in those sessions, I pick a new topic to nerd out about. And then the coming quarter, I read at least 2 articles a week on that topic, and I read at least 3 books during that 3-month stint about that topic. And suddenly I know things about the automotive industry that I didn't know before. So we need to train our salespeople and ourselves in how to consume information on a routine basis. Just like we go to the gym, we need to start doing a lot more reading, and we need to do a lot more research on topics that we would normally not dive into, because it will increase our likelihood of understanding a customer situation and a company situation and an industry change and all the things that's going on around us.
Yeah. So it made me think about the saying, action comes before inspiration. And it's something, whenever I'm struggling to create content for LinkedIn or struggling with something, I'll always go, what have I read recently? And it'll be that reminder, I haven't been dedicating time to my own professional development. And this is the red flag saying, okay, you need to dedicate time to that.
Yes. And if you think about it, I have to add this too now that you said that. If you think about it, if you have a leader who comes into the office every Friday and it's like, oh guys, I read this book this week, it's so good. And you look up to that leader, is there a likelihood that you will take that book and read it for yourself?
Yeah, Hell yeah.
Or a leader who says, oh, weak pod tip. You guys need to listen to this. Is it a likelihood that you will listen to that pod? Unless you don't get that and you have to do it all on your own. So when we're talking about encouraging learning, you can encourage that by the same way you're doing the work, leading as you learn. Like you need to lead by setting an example, and you also need to give people the sort of fundamental basics to start. And then they will start doing it. And suddenly they will come into sales meetings with a lot more creativity than they had before.
Yeah. I think there might be, I know that I certainly in the past had this expectation of this book having the answers, or, being in, just blown away by a book, by a pod.
Yeah.
And it's only after a few experiences where I've read something a year ago, 6 months ago, and then something's happened, and for some reason my brain's just pulled this piece of red yarn from that bit of information to this, and it's like contextualized it all. So I think we need to also remove that expectation that this is going to give you the answers. It's just about building that business acumen so that your brain can start distilling that information more.
Yes. And another way of doing this, because you guys will see, look, I'm a book nerd. Like I have read so many thousands of books in my life. I read normal literature too, not just sales books and stuff. But another thing that I have also realized, it's so few people who are working in the SDR gig are talking to people when they're not selling. Like actually having conversations. So one of the things that I do when I go in as a new employee, when I went in as a new employee in my previous gigs, no matter what role I had, so VP, head of sales, SDR, because I've done SDR roles, like purely SDR roles too, obviously, early in my career. The first thing I did was that I hooked up with like 20, 30 people on LinkedIn, connected with them, and then I started talking to them about what they're doing. I have no need to sell to them. I'm trying to understand the buyer. So I'm just peppering them with questions. And then I start understanding things based on the onboarding that I'm going through while I'm doing this conversation-based interviewing with people. And I've realized that the best SDRs, they do this all the time. They randomly, like once a month, they will go out and talk to like 10 potential buyers without selling anything, just asking them things. But most SDRs don't do this because no one is telling them to do this. No leader is telling them, you should just have 10 random conversations within your buyer sector, but don't try to sell to them. Because all the leaders want is for you to sell to everyone you talk to. And it takes away some of the learning curve that you can have when you start talking to, and you make it clear from the start, look, I'm trying to understand this gig. I'm trying to understand your buyer. You're the perfect match. And I promise I won't sell anything to you. I just need some advice. Yeah. And most people will just give you so much information. They feel happy that they're not going to get pitched up. They want to help, because most people at the core of them, they want to help you. Like, so when you ask, and it's the same with the mentorship, when you ask for things, you will very likely receive it unless you are doing the, ChatGPT pitch lab. Then it's very unlikely you will get it. But to be a person with these people, and even if only 2-3 of them respond, that's still going to be 2-3 responses that you wouldn't have gotten. And we'll also say this because it's necessary. Most of those conversations I had in the beginning of the new workplace turned into business because they like me. But that's not the goal. The goal is to understand what is going on for you guys. Yeah. And this type of research where we communicate with people, not just listen and read, but actually talk, test premises. So if you have a network on LinkedIn, which a bunch of people that you're not going to sell to, but that are in your ICP, but you have them because you want to have them to be able to pick their brain, you can test outreach messages with them too and say like, hey, would you respond to this? And they will just tell you, hell no, that sounds super safely. And then they can give you, if you wrote like this, I probably would respond to a higher rate. Because now I understand where you're coming from, what value you have. And I feel like unless SDRs are very unique as people, no one is going to tell them these things. Like the weird things that you can do to really fully understand your buyer and your industry that you're trying to target.
Yeah, I love that. Now, I wanted to just slightly backtrack to the piece you mentioned during your quarterly review. You mentioned you would pick a topic that you'll nerd out about.
Yeah.
trends are you seeing that could be relevant on that front for the next quarter, the next year, the next 5 years?
Yeah. So I see a huge shift in the B2B sales motion. I could say the AI trends, but it is based on the AI trends. So one of the things that we can see is that, so SMB, B2B motion, we need to move from that space. So we need to move from the SMB space. If we are in sales right now, in a couple of years, the SMB sales motion will be very much done online.
Yeah.
Like it will be very much done online. It will be done with help of AI guiding a customer through a journey, and they will buy it online. Like we can already now see that the increase of how much people are willing to pay for an online transaction is, I thought there was a study in the US last year that said that over 500,000 euros or dollars is something that people are willing to buy online. And here we are selling software for $3,000 a month, a year. Like we're not going to be able to motivate to keep salespeople who have salaries and incentives and also time for a leader to lead them, because the margin won't be there anymore. Yeah. And if you look at buyer perception, how buyers want to buy, we also need to start adapting. So one of the things that I see that within a few years, the enterprise segment, because the enterprise segment is a completely different beast. Yeah. That type of deal is a completely different beast. It's like running a huge project. It's a very different skill set that is required for the salesperson and the SDR who works in that space. It's a very different game, right? And that game is going to be a lot harder to do online in a B2B motion. It's going to require, at least at the end of the cycle, it's going to require people. Not necessarily in the sales roles we have today, because we need to move to a project leader type of positioning instead. But we're talking thought leadership and that type of profile. But the SMB space it's going to be hard to stay in your career if you're gonna focus in on SMB, especially the small businesses where the ACV is low, where the sales cycle are like 2 to 3 weeks. Like this is gonna be hard to motivate for teams. And I can already see now that the AI BDRs and things that are out there now, they are horrible now. But this is not gonna stay this way. They're not gonna stay this way. I went to a conference last year and I got a few of these sort of demoed to me, and they're not that bad. No. It's very dependent on what you put into the system. Obviously, shit in, shit out, that's a normal thing. But they're not that bad, and they will adjust super, super quickly. So if you are an SDR and you're only focusing on SMB, I would recommend that you start reskilling yourself already now to move into an SDR role for mid-segment or an AE in mid-segment. Because you need to have some time to sort of build your competence to be able to take that role. So that's the motion that I see, that is going to shift a lot. And it's going to lead to a lot of people, if they don't reskill now, to sit and be without jobs. Yeah. If you look at how many people are being fired in SaaS right now, as an example, this will impact our situation in the sales community a lot. And I feel like we are we're in a situation where we have the side of the group who's not believing this, who's like, no, but we can't be replaced by AI. It's never going to happen. And then we have the other ones who are like super engaged and they're like, oh, AI is going to be super supportive to me. This will help me a lot. Yeah. Yes, now it will. It's not going well, by the way. We're just failing at a higher pace right now because of AI outreach. It's horrible, but it will become increasingly better. Yeah. And as it does, we need to make some decisions for ourselves. So I would not recommend an SDR if they came to be like, I want to start my sales career. I would not recommend getting a first gig in SDR SMB. I would not recommend it because then you start at a down position already. Yeah. Because you might be one of the 10 who will manage the AI, but it's very unlikely that you will be.
Yeah. Just on your point about how rapidly tech is advancing, I read a report that was, and I'm going to butcher the actual stat in it, but it was something along the lines of within the next 10 years, in 10 years' time, we'll have seen 100 years worth of advancement at the current rate of advancement. And then in 40 years' time, it'll only take months to get 100 years worth of advancement at the current rate. So it's going quicker and quicker. And then on your point about the project leader, the sales role becoming more of a sort of guide, how does that impact the way that you'd coach and manage the SDR team?
Yeah, so I can tell you this much when it comes to our SDR team. Since we sell consultancy services, right? It's a bit of a different game. But one of the things that we're training them on is qualitative conversation, which means that we're not trying to push sell anything. Yes, they are trying to book a meeting, but they're pre-qualifying pretty hard before they do anything. So the first part of their interactions with customers is basically doing a few interview questions, because they're like, I don't know if we're a match, but let's see. Let's discuss. Let's see what we can end up in, because I'm not sure we will be a fit based on this XYZ factor, but let's see what we can do. And when we go into discovery, because they participate, because I want them to move to a place where they can do discovery themselves, even if they are so junior, and I believe we are like a month away from that happening without a problem, because they are soaking like fungus. There's a very positive side of this generation. I'm telling you right now, they just suck up information like no one's business. So one of the things that we're doing is doing discovery on the premise that we will disqualify. And this is about the project leader type of way. So I'm looking at a prospect, the first discovery meeting, I'm trying to find why we shouldn't work together, because I'm going to deliver that shit. So I want to make sure that whatever we agree on is something that will bring us money and them money. And if we can't, then we should just let it go. And since I approach it like that, I run meetings very much like a project manager. So I share insights, I share my information, I share all the things that I have to teach them. As soon as I get into a conversation with them, I don't leave a meeting without a next step booked. I don't roll around in negotiations. I give them a suggestion, we build it together, and we don't do the type of, here is a deal, and since the month is closing, you should sign now. It's like, this is what we should build now. So when we have negotiation meetings, what normal people would call that, we actually do project building meetings instead. So how do we build this project now? And just this approach compared to software, because I've been selling software a lot and I've been leading teams who sell software a lot. What we do is we have a first discovery. We note everything they say down. We ignore all of it and we go to a demo. And then we demo the entire platform. And then we tell them, please buy. And this is not how you drive deals. And I have never sold software like that, by the way, just to be clear. So when I sold software, I did the disqualification before I booked the meeting even. I tried to disqualify them in the conversation because I wanted only meetings where I knew it would be a high win rate for me. That's what I wanted when I booked for myself. My SDR teams worked the same before, and they were also incentivized in the soft space, incentivized on if the seller closed the deal, they got a small cut. Because then you will suddenly start pushing meetings that you think will generate money for you. Incentive models are very important here. Yeah. So when it comes to being consultative, first of all, you need to know a lot of things. You can't just pretend that you know about a space and not know anything. So since I have been nerding out for my entire working career, right, I know a lot of things. And of course, that makes it a lot easier for me to be able to address challenges, to be able to support customers, to be able to run projects with them, to create comfortability and now also create trust. But for my junior SDRs now, they don't know a lot of things. That's the whole point. They are junior, so they don't know enough. What they do know a lot about, because that's what we started training them on, is SaaS, how the industry works, and then how their buyer personas, organizations look, what challenges they have, how they talk to their board, how much money they can spend without getting to ask a question for the board or the leadership team, what type of politics they're in, and I mean not politics outside of the business, in the business. Yeah. How a buying process works for SaaS companies specifically, since that's all we're targeting. And when you have clear ICPs for your SDRs and clear buyer personas, they can really become experts only there. And that's enough to be able to take an approach that is, I've done this before, I will hold your hand and you will walk with me. Do you want to walk? Because we need accelerated consent. We don't just need yes, book a meeting. We need someone to say, yes, oh my God, I want a meeting so bad. That's what we want. And then we need to have a very different mentality and conversation with clients.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And just on the piece around the incentivization and how the commission structure, I think it's probably a complete other can of worms. But I think there are definitely some issues, and we need to ensure that we're encouraging the right behaviours, right?
Yes.
Whether it is, there's a question mark.
And also, we need to also encourage people to stay a bit longer in their roles. Because if you go on a commission structure, that means that you will get paid when the meeting has been vetted, ICP match, right? ICP match, important. Buyer persona match. Are we meeting with the right person? Or are we meeting with the team lead in that team? It's not the same. So ICP match and team and the right title. This is something that means that your meeting becomes something you can get paid for. And that's a small piece of the money. The next money comes when the deal is closed won. And since we have sales cycles in this, and even though we sell consultancy, I'm working on a very short sales cycle. We have discovery, we have a project planning meeting where we go through what we're gonna build to do in the project, and then we have a closing meeting. So that's 3 meetings, which means that we can do this in 3 to 4 weeks. So our SDRs can get paid pretty quickly based on a closed won deal, and they get a commission cut. The other thing we can do, if you're a software company, is that when the customer has gone through their first "Are you happy?" phase, 6 months, the customer success has a meeting. If they rate us over a certain amount of key index so that they're happy, the SDR can get a piece of commission for that too. Because then the customer isn't only a good ICP fit, they are a good fit for doing the things in the software that they're supposed to be doing. And suddenly they build up over a pipe over time of money coming in without having to feel like they're ongoingly chasing. Because that's not as to say, like, we are people we need some comfort, especially now. So why not treat them like you would treat the person you actually like and give them incentives over time, instead of treating them like people we can throw out in any moment, because that's how we look at SDRs. It's a very bad culture around SDRs, unfortunately. One of the most crucial pieces of people in the business, if I'm going to be honest. And we're looking down on them and like, when are you going to become an AI? Like, who cares? I'm giving you guys meetings. Like, why are you treating me this way? It's an ongoing challenge. I don't know if you recognize that for yourself, if you can see that out in the market. But it is like we're, I don't know, talking to our junior retarded cousins, and it's not fair.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I love the fact that it's not only when that deal closes, it's actually at that 6-month check-in. Because that's when, okay, you found a great client.
Yes. And also they will stay and keep paying us money. Because annual revenue, recurring revenue only reoccurs if they keep growing, right? It's a pretty important metric for companies.
Indeed. I love that. It encourages that longer term view, longer term outlook, rather than just getting so caught head down, which is brilliant. I'm conscious of time. One last question from me, Sarah. Are there any tools that have significantly improved or impacted the team's efficiency or performance, perhaps more importantly?
Yes, so I will give you a tool now. So Sintra AI is a tool that we're all using. It's like $19 a month. It's amazing. I get paid nothing to say this, just to be clear. It's so good. So basically what we're doing with Sintra is that Sintra is the content planning for all of us. So we do all of our LinkedIn content through her. So she gives us the titles and all the topics we're going to address, and then we write some of the content ourselves, because it's not tonality. AI is not great yet. But it gives us a structure, which means that every Monday we all sit together in the team, me and the SDRs, and we sit an hour. We use her to prompt in different ways to get ideation. That we write all the content for the coming 2 weeks, and then we publish it. So we're done. So it's an hour intense work, right? And then she also is great at one more thing, doing research on accounts. So I found like the best prompts for getting research on the accounts. I did a few shares last week where I sort of shouted out a few accounts that I wanted to book meetings with. PandaDoc, OneFlow, and Chili Piper. I secured a meeting with PandaDoc. I'm waiting for the 2 other ones because I did an analysis of their company, what they need to work on, pretty outspoken. And they all commented like, yeah, you have a point. And this is what I will then go in and book the meeting on. It's a great creative way of getting people's attention. And it also shows that you know your industry. So doing this type of analytics on a company, pinging them and a few people who are active on social in the account, and then talking about all the things they're doing great, and then the things that they can do better with. If you can sell to them for that, it's perfect. So this is a tip that I would severely recommend, because it saves our SDRs so much time trying to come up with what to post on social.
Yeah, that's half the battle, isn't it?
Yeah, I know.
Figure out what it is.
And I do like 35 posts a week, so I need help. Like, this is, yeah,
game changer. I'm definitely having a look at that as soon as we get off, in fact.
Yeah.
Sara, it has been an absolute pleasure. I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. If anyone does want to reach out to you, LinkedIn, is that?
Yeah, Sara Storm on LinkedIn. I have a hashtag revenue gangster, so I'm sure you will find me.
Okay. I love that.
Okay.
Thank you once again, and for listening. Until next time.
Bye, guys.